Alex Bray, welcome to Australian Musician.
Greg, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
We're talking about your new website, which is notpedals.com. Just before we get there, I wanted to get a bit of background on you. You're a Melbourne musician, still playing.
Yeah, guilty as charged. I am. I grew up playing in bands, played in a number of bands all around Australia. We did a bit of touring. We sort of peaked out playing a set on Rove Live. And then eventually I got sort of sick of the touring and decided to, I guess, settle down a bit more and still record, still play when I get the time to, and still absolutely, love music. It's a big part of my life.
Yeah. So, who were the guitar players that got you interested in tone and then discovering what was in their pedal boards?
Early on, it was actually Jeff Lang. I was taken to a Jeff Lang gig at the Espy after I heard him on PBS when I was probably about 12, 13 years old. I'd grown up listening to Neil Young, and I'd heard this guy playing slide on PBS and begged my mum to take me to the Espy. And bless her, she did. And I got to see Jeff Lang live on stage, and it absolutely blew my mind. I couldn't believe the sounds he was getting out of the guitar, particularly the percussive sort of tone. Um, and I got to chat to him as a 12-year-old, which was probably really weird for him, coming up to him at the gig, and got him to sign the poster and asked him about his pedals. And it was the first time I learned what a compression pedal is. Yeah. So probably then, that's really what got me into it. And then, growing up when I did in the 90s, bands like Radiohead, Mogwai, Boards of Canada, all of these bands that sort of started coming out in the late 90s when I was in my later teen years were really, I guess, a new era of music that used effects pedals, beyond what I'd grown up hearing Jimi Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jeff Lang doing. And it got me deeply into effects and all my friends and the bands who were playing in.
Yeah. So, this website, notpedals.com, when did you push go on that one?
So I was talking with a good friend in Canada who goes under the pedal brand Sleep Champion Devices. He'd sent me a new pedal of his that he'd built, which was a beautiful Germanium boost. Um, and I asked him where he's selling them and how he gets these into the hands of musicians to use. And he sort of said, "Oh, look, I sell a bit on my website. I've got some on Reverb and a couple of local music shops." And I realized there wasn't a central place where all these sort of smaller builders who are underneath these sort of big six boutique brands could sell their wares. So that was December 2024. And then I pushed go early May this year, and just had such an incredible response from the community. I think there was a real hunger amongst artists, guitarists, bass players, and noisemakers to connect with these smaller builders that they weren't seeing heavily on YouTube or in their local guitar shop, who were making absolutely world class, inspiring sort of guitar effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why did you call it not pedals?
Was having a conversation with my partner about 10 years ago, in a phase when I was going through a lot of get pedal swapping and people were popping over to buy pedals from me and I was selling pedals. And I said to her once, we need to talk about something. And I think we had some travel coming up. And she looked at me and said, "It's not pedals, is it?" So that's where the name came from. And I think that's the first time I've spoken about that publicly.
So, how do you source your pedals? How do pedals end up on your site?
Originally, I put the word out in the pedal sort of building community, and there's quite a large community, it appears, of small builders. I put it out there in some online forums and got about 280 builders coming back, saying they'd be interested in listing on the platform. So that was the initial batch, and I sort of narrowed that down to about 50 builders who I really wanted to talk to. And I generally go through, I guess, what you do with musicians and people in the industry. I got to know them through either online chats or grabbing a beer, and actually getting to know the builders to understand what motivates them, the sort of quality control they have on their pedals that they build. And then once we've done that, we'll usually progress to listing them after that.
Yeah. So where do you draw the line between indie pedal makers and boutique makers? What's the criteria for being on your site?
It's funny, it's been a bit of a learning curve and a sort of evolving thing. Originally, when I first came up with the idea, I was like, if they're selling less than 2,000 pedals a year, 1,000 pedals a year, that's probably the sweet spot for us. But as I've gotten to know the industry more and the builders more, I think it's really people who are building and selling anything from one or two a year, tiny builders who are making bespoke pedals through to people who sell, 500 a year. Once you get beyond that 500, they tend to have their own big sort of following and platform, and they probably don't need something like Not Pedals. So the ideal for me is they come on when they're selling, 10, 20, 30 pedals a year, and I'll kick them off in a couple of years when they're selling a few hundred a year. So we keep the spotlight on those really small builders.
Yeah. Have there been any consequences of starting the site that you didn't expect?
One of the really good ones are the friendships. It sounds cliched, but I've met builders from all over the world, from Iceland, from Mexico, from Canada, from the US, that have become friends and like-minded, musicians and artists, which has been amazing. And I guess those connections I didn't see that connection building so organically, but it did. And also, my pedal collection has grown. I've been guilty of getting high off my own supply and getting pedals from the site. And I guess someone who's been playing, I've been playing for, 35 years. I didn't think there was a lot of maybe a lot of fresh fuel in the tank as far as effects goes. Um, but I've found builders really making stuff that I'd never thought of or considered. And it's probably inspired me and pushed my playing.
Yeah. So are you running the site totally on your own? Do you have people helping you?
100% on my own. I sort of I learned how to build the site and had a pretty solid idea in my head of what I wanted the experience to be like for, I guess, the musicians who want to buy the pedals. I built it, and it's just been a really great learning curve of connecting with that community, mainly online, and yeah, solo effort. But I guess the 50 to 100 builders who are listing their gear on there are equal co-contributors. You know,
Yeah. So how are you coping with the level of business at the moment? And can you see it getting out of control and you may have to bring some other people in?
but how tired do I look? Yeah, I think I'd love to bring some other people in to connect. There's a lot of stories um, coming up from meeting these builders. There's amazing stories behind every single one who's building these pedals in their garage, in their spare room. A lot of them are musicians, touring musicians. Um, I probably will connect with someone who's maybe a better storyteller than I am in the future. So we can really share those. I'd really like to share those stories more with the world for interviews, videos, that kind of thing.
Yeah. On a personal level, what's been one of your finest pedal discoveries so far?
There's a pedal called a Ecosphere by a guy building in the US, um, which is the most insane delay. It's not even a delay pedal. It's like a delay system. It's just, it's done so much. I've had it on my board for about 2 months. I'm using it on drums, synths, everything. It's absolutely wild. So yeah, I think the Ecosphere, which is up on Not Pedals, has been one of the most mind-blowing pedals I've used, and I'll be doing a video about it soon, actually.
Yeah. Your current pedal of the month is the retrograde Void Gazer.
Yeah.
Fabulous sounds coming out of that one.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's amazing. I thought it was just going to be a sort of wall of fuzz, uh, heavy, sort of out of control pedal from some of the demos I'd seen. But realistically, when you plug that thing into a solid state amp, you turn the gain down. Um, it's just so nuanced. It's got so much versatility to it, and it just livens everything up. It's crazy.
Yeah. Um, in some cases, the pedal creators, you say on the site, have only built one pedal. And in your information, you basically say if you see something, snap it up because it may not be there for very long.
Yeah, there's Quirk Effects, a really good example of that. Quirk Effects out of the US. He builds literally one-off pedals with really crazy sort of thematic stuff. He's got some Lord of the Rings pedals. He's got some Big Lebowski pedals, and every single one is unique work, unique circuit, everything, and they fly off the shelves. He's built a real following. So as soon as I list one of those pedals, almost every single time, it's gone within 12 hours.
Yeah. Do you build or have you attempted to build pedals yourself?
Nah, look, I modified the big muff pedal that I got when I was 16 by putting a power supply in it. Um, and that was the limit of it for me. So I try and be clear with everyone. I'm not a builder. The real talented people are the ones listing on the platform. I just sort of provide the space for them, I guess.
Yeah. Dealing with indie makers all over the world, what sort of product guarantee is available?
Yeah, I think that's really important. There was two objectives I wanted with Not Pedals. The first one was to highlight those small builders to avoid a monopoly or a monoculture, which I think is always terrible in the arts. I wanted there to be more variety. And the second thing was I wanted those small builders to have access to a really solid retail experience that these bigger builders have. And one of the key points of that, the really good builders, is a lifetime repair replacement warranty. So we've only ever had one pedal go out, which there was a very slight issue with. And I was so impressed. The builder got straight into the email chain with us within minutes and said, "I've got your address from Alex. I've shipped you a new one. It's optional if you want to send me the old one back or if you want to play around with it yourself." It's we have to have trust in a platform like Not Pedals, particularly when you're convincing someone to spend their hard-earned money on an unknown potentially brand versus Boss, or JHS or whatever. Um, so I think that's the quality control. If I let them on the platform, I know they've got good quality control, and then we back it up with that, lifetime warranty.
Yeah. Have you managed to meet any of these makers personally?
Yeah, so particularly in Melbourne, there's this amazing cohort of builders that I connected with originally through Galar Core Effects. He's a Melbourne builder and he's got a couple of pedals on notpedals.com. He's based in Melbourne. He's part of a crew called the Pedal Wizards, which is about 6 or 7 builders, including other guys like Dazatronics, who's been making amazing stuff for years, Kink Pedals, who are based in Melbourne. And I've gone out for beers with Paul from Galar Effects a couple of times to talk shop, and what he's doing and the pedal scene in Australia in general. And it's been great. I've got some travel planned next year to the US and Canada where I meeting a lot of the builders in person for the first time instead of just online, and hopefully making a really cool mini documentary about the indie pedal making scene.
Are you going to the NAM show in January?
I'm going to miss the NAM show by about 2 weeks, unfortunately, but I'm sure I'll hear a lot about it from all of the builders who I meet who have just attended it.
So, what's the grand plan for notpedals.com?
I'd like to become the singular place where musicians and artists can connect with new, exciting pedals before they become classics. There'll be pedals in the cohort that's on Not Pedals that I know in 10, 15, 20 years, people will be looking at it the same way they did the TS9 or a Fuzz Face or a Centaur. And I'd like Not Pedals to be the place that everyone trusts to meet that new pedal.
Yeah. Well, Alex, it's been great to chat, and it's a fantastic idea, and all the best with it.
It's great to finally meet you, Greg. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah.